To those who are not Michigan fans, just prepare yourself for what you're about to see.
You may proceed. Your king is thirsty, quenched.
Well, let's get this over with.
Proceed.
The house is now divided.
The house is now owned.
The house
The
is now
king
divided.
has returned. Continue.
The house is now divided. This is your 2021 Big Ten champ, which I'm sure you'll beat Purdue, but it hasn't happened yet.
Thank you. Your well wishes are well received, my friend. Well received. The North thanks you.
And your resident Ohio State fan, it's JTG. Michigan beat Ohio State.
What was the score?
I don't care.
What was the score?
I don't know.
I'll take it over.
45 to 20 something.
I'll finish. I'll take it over. Michigan beat Ohio State 45 to 23 on the road in the Horseshoe in a top 5 matchup. The clash of titans, the matchup of the century, the biggest game since 2006, number 1, number 2. C.J. Stroud, Mayan Williams, Chip Trainum, Marvin Harrison Jr., Cade Stover, and the boys meet the Michigan Wolverines, J.J. McCarthy.
Are you doing your best Gus impression again?
Yeah. I mean, you didn't want to bring us in, so I'm going to bring us in like Gus. J.J. McCarthy. Blake Corum tried to give it a go. 2 plays, 10 yards, can't do it. Sit down. Got an NFL career to worry about. I'm glad you gave it a try. Appreciate you. Donovan Edwards. Hand in a fucking mitten. Mike Morris didn't play. Woo! Listen, okay, so let's get serious for a second. Let's actually talk about the game because I want you to engage.
No, thank you.
Your king has commanded. Anyways, so the first half of that game, man, woo!
Close one.
Woo-wee! Like, so it was very obvious from jump that Jim Knowles said, I'm getting paid $2 million to stop the run. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to
Forget about everything else.
I'm going to get Eichenberg. I'm going to get Steel Chambers. I'm going to get, Hickman, at the whole 11, plus Buckeye Jim, Brutus, and Kirk Herbstreit, and we're going to fill that box, and you're going to do something else. And in the first half, that was the tale of the game on both lines of scrimmage. That was the tale of the game, is that they were very, very cognizant of the fact that people didn't think that they were tough, that people didn't think that they could run the ball and stop the run. And so they showed very early in that game that they heard that and that they were going to do their best to show that. And to their credit, the first half statistically could not have gone better for Ohio State. They doubled us in plays, outgained us in yardage by at least 200 yards, outrushed us, held us to 1 yard in the first half.
1 yard rush them.
Yeah, they had scored 20 points. I think that they would like to have scored more, but even still, they were up. But still, even with all of that, we were down 3. You have that type of performance from Ohio State in any other game. If they would have gotten that versus Maryland last week, that game would have been a blowout. We stayed close because we were able to do the one thing that everybody has been ranting and raving and, we need more reps and we need to throw the ball more. I know y'all was cheering yesterday because they hit on those plays, right? But what have I been saying since they've been trying to focus on the passing game? It's not the amount of times you throw it. It's not how many times you threw it in September. It's executing the opportunities that are called out there, and that is what you can have when you execute. When you catch the ball, run and score. That's it. That's basic football. That's all. They threw the ball 24 times. Same amount of pass attempts as we've been doing the entire season, only they took advantage of the opportunities that were there. We don't need to throw the ball even 30 times. It don't got to be 50. We don't need to throw the ball even 30 times. As long as we take advantage of the opportunities that are there, when you execute, that is what can happen. It's execution. Execute. When the players on Cornelius Johnson, my boy.
Where did he get hands from?
Bruh. And running like damn Jamar Chase out there. Looking back at defenders. Where did you come from, son? But that's what it is. That is the difference between execution and not executing. That's the difference between being a senior, dropping passes late in the season, making the passing offense look inept, and having a day versus a top 2 team in the final game of the season on the road. That's the difference. Execution. They've gotten enough reps. They've run that play, I guarantee you, 1,000,000 times in practice. We've probably seen it a couple times in season as well. They just haven't hit on it. When we needed it most, he executed. That's what counts at the end of the day. So yeah, they were able to stay attached. And then in the second half, as my boy Johnny Oden would say, you get nothing. You get nothing. Take punk ass field goal. You get nothing. Shout out to J.O. We stopped the run. We got our running game going. We were able to get turnovers when we needed them. And Donovan sealed the game with a Is this your king? Is it?
I was hoping that picture would fall over.
Backbreaker. Backbreaker. To close it. 2 of them. 75. Boom. Oh, stack box again? No problem. 85. Boom. That's Michigan football. We don't have to play nobody else's game. Matter of fact, we got a menu. How do you want it? How do you want it? Do you want us to run it down your throat, or do you want us to deep play action? What do you want? Have it your way. This is it. And you don't get this unless we built the offense the exact way we built it this season. The exact way we built it this season. Oh, I'm on your ass. Oh, I'm on your ass. Not just the national media. Not a single person on Saturday picked Michigan to win except for Charles Woodson and Desmond Howard. That's it. Not Reggie Bush. Not Matt Leinart. Not Joel Klatt. Not Tim Tebow or Kirk Herbstreit or Pat McAfee or Lee Corso. Not R.J. Young. Who else? Who else do I need to call out? Even our online contributors. Not Isaiah Hole. Not Steve Dace. Not Clayton Safey. Not Chris Ballas. None of you had the stones to stand on your offense, to stand on your team, what we have done all season. College football nerds talking about there was no data to suggest, get out of here. No data. You don't know what the data was? Top 5 in passing defense, top 5 rushing defense. Only team in the country to do that. Ohio State has struggled this time against defenses that are nowhere near as good as ours. Never wanted to acknowledge it. That's your data. That's your data. When did they struggle? Who did they struggle against? How good is Michigan? That's your data, fam. The only contributor who was a real one and stuck by their team and actually predicted what happened, Sam Webb, Johnny Oden. Y'all should be embarrassed. Because you know what that showed me? Y'all have been whipped into submission. The signs were there. They were there. The argument for Michigan beating Ohio State was there. All you had to do was have the courage to make the call. That's it. That's it. Nothing that happened on Saturday should have surprised. Well, look, the one thing that I'll say surprised me is that they hit on so many deep shots. I didn't think they was going to need all that, 5 75-yard plays. But their ability to hit people when they're playing cover 0, no, I didn't. I didn't doubt it. Haven't doubted it not one time this season. I have criticized them when they weren't executing, and I said that the players were the one where we needed to lay that blame. The players had to do better. And when they did, man, the play calls look great, don't they? I didn't hear anybody complaining about the play calling on Saturday. Not a single fucking person. You know what I didn't hear bring up is the fact that we got 2 offensive play callers. Didn't hear Joel Klatt say a word. Not a word. All of a sudden, when the players are making plays, when the Jimmies and Joes are doing what they're supposed to and executing, nobody looks at the coaches. And they didn't call a perfect game in the first half. By far. Even with those shots. But it didn't matter because the guys made it work. Period. Go ahead, man. Tell me about your team.
You remember when Shaq dunked on Chris Dudley? And
Sure.
Like, pushed him down, and then...
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's what this feels like. That's what this feels like, except instead of pointing in our faces, they took out Blake Corum and didn't even fucking need him. Didn't fucking need him. 200 yards in the second half by Donovan Edwards is... CJ Stroud... Not going to put the blame of the game on him because he still, stat-wise, I guess, had a decent game, even though he overthrew throws, bad decision-making in some cases, not running when literally the line is giving you all fucking day to pass. And if there's nobody open, use your fucking legs. But not putting this on him. Jesus Christ. Where did Michigan come from with all of these big plays? I mean, I know you've obviously mentioned it, but... 75-yard runs. Like, literally the passing game didn't show up since, like, the 3rd game of this season, and now all of a sudden we don't know how to put a safety in coverage, apparently, and we have 3 of them. Oh, I also got to mention, G. Scott, what the fuck? What the fuck are you doing? Why are you headbutting people on the sideline for no fucking reason, pinning us back 1st and 30? What the fuck is your problem? But... regardless, I know everybody probably wants to hear me literally say, fire Ryan Day. I don't fucking know. I don't know if that's the answer, but it's one thing that's very clear in that we need to change the entire environment. I don't know if guys like CJ Stroud and other guys from states that aren't Ohio or at least in the Midwest region understand how big it is to lose to Michigan. I don't know. They know how big it is to lose, but I don't know if they know the stakes of the rivalry.
We talked about this in the beginning of the season, man. Most of those guys have either only got 1 win versus Michigan or have never beaten Michigan.
Yeah.
That's the majority of the team. Well, that is the team.
Yeah, and I'm sure maybe literally CJ Stroud knows, maybe. But, like, when you get all these guys from literally everywhere, I just don't know that they know. Like, Blake Corum is somewhat from the Midwest.
Maryland, yeah.
JJ is
from Illinois.
You know what I mean? Like, these
Donovan
guys...
Edwards is from Michigan.
These guys, at the very least, kind of understand it. When you're from California, this is not your rivalry. So
you know what, though? I do think he understands. And I kind of shy away from acknowledging people talking about their faith a lot because you never know whether or not that stuff is real. But I think he is he's strong in his faith. He's devout. Mm-hmm. At least that's what he gives off.
Yeah.
I think that you almost kind of feel for him because it's like he has all the tools and he even has the stats. Like when you look at these box scores in these last 2 games from him, those are not games where you be like, oh, well, I mean, we know exactly what happened. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're just not. But there are certain times, there are certain plays where you need it, where he's not the one to make the play. Mm-hmm. Last year, he leaned heavily on Smith and Jigba and Olave and Garrett Wilson, and rightfully so. You got guys like that. You throw the ball up and let them go to work. I think this year, it was more incumbent on him to push, some of those other guys other than Harrison Jr., like Egbuka and Fleming.
Which he did in some cases.
To the tune of 350 yards. That's what I'm saying. Like, it looks good on paper. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't make the difference.
He like I said, he overthrew some throws, but then there were also some drops. I think Marvin Harrison had his first drop
of the season. But I knew it was going to happen because they kept playing it up. They kept fucking talking about it. I was like, yo, no, you're jinxed him. All right? Like, he's going to have a drop this game for sure. Here go fucking Urban. And I didn't even know this. Yes, the fuck you did, because you probably tried to have somebody look it up for you to make sure it was right. Yeah. I didn't even know this until today, but he hasn't had a drop all season. That is unheard of for a receiver. First quarter. Like, I could have seen that coming from a mile away.
I agree. I say all that to say that they need to undergo a culture change, much like Jim Harbaugh did when, you know, he was in the hot seat. And I ultimately don't know what that's going to take, but, you know, it seemed like Ryan Day specifically was playing not to lose the game at certain points, not going for like 4th and 2 and 4th and 5. I don't know.
The 4th and 5 was a little tricky because y'all weren't showing at that time. You weren't showing that you could pick up the short yardage.
Yeah.
And then, you know, if you get stuck there, Michigan's already up 8 at that point in time. They were really trying not to get down 2 scores is what it was.
Yeah.
Like, Michigan's offense was starting to pick up steam in the third quarter, but I don't think they did enough at that point, like compared to what they were doing in the first half, to say, oh, we got to keep the ball away from those guys.
Yeah.
It was more so of it's a smarter bet, play the percentages, kick the ball, play field position, because they hadn't started to give up those big plays in the second half yet.
Yeah, no, you're right. I guess I just don't know if it's Ryan Day that's going to be able to lead us into this culture change, or if it's a change that needs to be made to do so.
So before the season started, right, Big Ten Media Days, here's Ryan Day. 11-2 is great at a lot of places, not here at Ohio State. Right after he said that, what did I come on the pod and say? Why are you setting up your own hot seat? Like, all of that shit sounds great to the locals and to the community, and it makes them feel warm. It makes them feel like you got it and that you're going to take care of business. But coaches, see, the thing is like, coaches don't think all the time. Like, when they're within season, sure. But in the macro, they don't think of single seasons. They think of the span. You know, what did my next 2 or 3 years look like? What do my teams look like? Unless he just honestly believed in his heart of hearts, which after what happened last year, I don't see how you could. But unless he just honestly believed in his heart of hearts that they were going to come out and dominate Michigan with mostly the same players from last year, and it wasn't going to be a dogfight, I don't know why you would ever say that. Because even the quarterback who guaranteed a win versus Ohio State back in 1986, I believe it was, wouldn't do that as a coach. You don't guarantee shit. Yeah, we're going to die trying. Sure, fine. It means you're totally committed and you're going to give every ounce plus some to do it. But you don't guarantee shit. You don't guarantee nothing. Not to mention that 99.9999999, every coach not named Smart, Saban, Harbaugh, or Day would kill for an 11-win season. And that's it. It was just like at their lowest moment, right, when they should be humbled, he was elevating himself above the rest of college football. And it's just like, that's extremely arrogant in the first place. But then to set up your own hot seat in doing it, well, you can literally go undefeated except for that one game, and you could be up to get fired the next season because you told all the whole fan base in the city of Columbus that, hey, I'm not doing my job. I am a complete failure. If I don't do this one thing, beat Michigan, go to the Big Ten championship, and hopefully a playoff. Now, even in saying that, though, I don't think the right thing to do is to run him out of town. That's the last thing y'all should be wanting to do right now.
Yeah, I'm not. I wouldn't say that I'm a part of that. I guess I'm just saying I don't necessarily know, and I'm not mad at anybody for.
I think every Ohio State fan I've talked to so far said get Ryan Day out of there, which is
I'm not 100% sold on it yet, but I don't know. I guess we'll just have to see.
I just don't think that's the way to go, right? Like, again, and I was on the wrong side of this too. I was on the side of, hey, let's Let's get a blank check down to Lincoln and see if Lincoln Riley, or down to Norman, see if Lincoln Riley come up to Ann Arbor. But no, man. Force the guy that you hired, the one that you think is qualified to do the job, to change, or let him be changed. Change or be changed. That is where we are at right now with Ryan Day. It's because there's a lot of fucking lip service about, oh, we were scarred last year and we wanted to prove that we're tough and we wanted to prove that we're this and we're that. And when it came down to it, when rubber met the road and the pressure started building, their true identity that has showed itself throughout this season periodically showed up in the late parts of this game.
Yeah.
You can't play lip service. You got to do it. You want to be a running team? Run the damn ball. Run the ball. Invest in running the ball. Not zone schemes, not toss sweeps outside. Power, counter, trap, duo. In the guts. That's where you get your money.
And the reason why I say that I'm not mad at anybody for saying fire Ryan Day is because, well, for one, that literally puts him in the hot seat. And two, it's a reaction to what we saw in that game. And that is a complete failure, especially losing at home and then seeing them plant their flag in the middle of the field, which...
Mikey Sandersteele, boy. Hey, man, you are a Michigan legend, boy. You are a Michigan legend. Do you hear me? He probably played himself into getting drafted this season. Mike Sandersteele was a fourth-year player playing wide receiver who would get periodic big plays every now and again throughout the season, and has played himself into an early first 2-day draft pick in this season alone, changing positions. Mike Sandersteele is a legend now. J.J. McCarthy, for whatever happens for the rest of his career at Michigan, he will always have this season. 12-0, beating Ohio State in the shoe, 4 touchdowns. He will always have that. He is a legend now. That is all it took. You execute, you make history.
Yeah, no, my final thought going into this is that this game was a question on whether or not last year's win was a fluke.
No,
there's no question.
Sirree, Bob.
There's no question about it.
Now, don't flirt into the obscurity. You know what I'm saying? Don't tunnel down a rabbit hole too far. You know, there's always next year.
No, I mean, literally, there is always next year. But regardless,
oh my God,
that definitely wasn't a fluke.
Oh my God, it's like it's like me is talking to me. Like you are me and I am you and we are each other. And the roles have flipped. The rivalry has turned on its head.
Okay, gross.
But
okay, so with that, because I was really upset about last year, I didn't root for Michigan going into the playoffs. Yeah, if y'all going to beat us at home and do that to us, you better go into the playoffs and kick some SEC ass.
Yeah, bro, you already know, bro.
Don't do what you did last year. Show up and
this is how it's going to play.
Whoop some ass.
They're going to keep Georgia at number 1. Of course, we have to continue the masquerade that SEC teams are just inherently better than every other conference. We have to keep that facade because they don't have a extending contract with any other conference except for the ACC and the SEC, and the ACC sucks. Mm-hmm. So they're going to keep Georgia there. Michigan will be 2. TCU will be 3. USC will be 4.
Pending neither one of those last 2 teams lose.
Going into championship weekend, they'll be 4. 5 is probably Alabama.
Well, at least according to the AP, 5 is Ohio State right now.
Well, I think Ohio State will be 6. I think if they were close, if the game was close on the scoreboard, they probably would have been 5 ahead of Alabama. I think they'll take the fact that they lost at home in that fashion to heart, because Alabama's losses is on the road to Tennessee and on the road to LSU. They didn't get blown out at home.
Sure, but then you have to weigh a 1-loss non-champion to a 2-loss non-champion.
I mean, it'd obviously be a debate, right? But
yeah, no,
they're not showing favoritism to Big Ten teams.
And boy, if there will ever be a SEC bias argument at that point.
And then acknowledging the team that you lost to would have to acknowledge that Michigan is better than Georgia, right? Essentially.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know. We're in for a doozy. I don't know what's going to happen as far as that goes, but we didn't play like we were deserving of the playoffs. So at least in the second half.
I think if that holds, that top four, Georgia, Michigan, TCU, USC and Georgia will play in the first round. They'll get exposed because they won't be able to stop Georgia because they have played absolutely putrid defenses. And while I think Caleb Williams is a Heisman contender, he's probably the leader right now as of this week.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's had the benefit of playing versus Swiss cheese. And I think in the playoffs, that is going to show. If not the Pac-12 championship, I don't know who's the second half of the Pac-12 championship. You know?
Utah, I think.
Is it Utah?
I think.
He might get exposed in that game because Utah can play a little bit of defense. But for the majority of the season, he's been playing teams with inferior defenses. Maybe, just maybe, God willing, Michigan, Georgia rematch in the national title. Just maybe. Now, if USC loses, do they go with Bama or Ohio State is the question. I got to be honest with you, man. I would prefer for our game to be a knockout blow. I want it to still have stakes while we're still in a 4-team playoff. Because when they change it to a 12-team, it's not going to have that kind of weight. We'll be playing for seeding at that point instead of getting into the playoff.
Mm-hmm.
I think, honestly, well, what do you think about it first before you?
Well, again, like I said before, I don't necessarily believe that they played well enough to even get playoff hopes. Like I just feel like we're not a team worthy of even having hopes after just completely dismantling in that second half. But one lost non-champion versus a 2-loss non-champion, again, that sticks out to me. Because then at that point, if you are willing to put Bama in, that's clear SEC bias, and I'm not here for it.
Well, it's been that way all season, though. And I love how when you look, man, when you cheat in the system, the football gods will correct you. And that's what's happened this season. Every time they've tried to falsely inflate one of these SEC teams and put them within that range of making it so they can be two of them, they've lost. Mm-hmm. LSU lost this season. Mm-hmm. Tennessee has lost twice down the stretch. Mm-hmm. Now all they had to do was win out, and they would have been there with a one terrible loss, backing their way into the playoffs. Had they just won out, and they couldn't. They couldn't even beat South Carolina.
Yep.
Falsely inflated. They were ranked number 1 in the first playoff poll. Mm-hmm. Number 1. They lost to South Carolina. So did Clemson.
Yep.
Who was ranked within your top 4 in the first playoffs.
Yep.
Like, this is an embarrassment. It really is. It's fucking embarrassing.
I agree.
You ranked Georgia 3 to start. Like, it's embarrassing. It is absolutely embarrassing how they have fallen over themselves trying to get 2 SEC teams into the playoff, and the teams just lose. Mm-hmm. They literally pick up too many losses for you to falsely inflate them.
Yep.
That is embarrassing.
Yep.
Your bias is rank. Like, am I supposed to pretend that the fact that the network that runs the football committee and sets up the matchups doesn't have a vested interest in getting SEC teams in there, being that they are the only ones that are still financially tied to ESPN going forward beyond 2023 and the ACC? But the ACC doesn't have enough teams that are actually good. So we'll just falsely inflate some of them on the back half of the rankings to inflate Clemson. Mm-hmm. See where I'm going with this? It's all about the money. The teams that have a deal with us, the teams that we have an exclusive right to show on our networks are going to always be ranked higher because they're on our networks.
Yep. There's really no other way to put it. So as much as I feel like we shouldn't have playoff hopes, just because, again, dismantled.
I think our game should, as long as it's still the case that it's 4 teams, that should be a knockout blow. It was a playoff game in itself.
Yeah.
That's the way we treated it. I would think that's the way that Ohio State went into it.
Yeah.
It was a de facto playoff game.
It was the Big Ten championship game, essentially.
Yep. So, hey, shout out to my boys, man.
And if Michigan lost, I would say the same thing.
Because
no, I don't want y'all.
Yeah, I mean that's the way it is. Don't nobody want to sneak in the back door off of luck. Mm-hmm. You want to prove it. You want to say that you took it. Shout out to them, man. Nobody. We was a 7-point dog in this game. Nobody picked us to win. They all making excuses as to why they was wrong now, but we all know. Nobody picked us. I just told y'all, me, Sam Webb, and Johnny O, and that's it. Everybody else had been whipped to believe that they couldn't come to Columbus and do it. Whooped. And now I'm hoping that y'all find the confidence to come out of y'all shell and start talking with your chest puffed out and your nuts dropped. Is what I hope we can start hearing out of some Michigan commentary from now on. Now that we've proven that we can take their hearts out of their chest. We can flip the tables on them the same way they did on us. And hey, we didn't have to have a former assistant or former coordinator giving our hand signals to them to do it either.
So do we talk about the rest of the Big Ten? I mean, does it really matter?
Quickly. Let's talk about the other villages and providences that are loyal to the crown.
Jesus. Iowa lost to Nebraska.
Embarrassment.
Embarrassment.
Kurt Ferentz, you're not serious about winning football games if your son's still the offensive coordinator next season. Flat out, like you're not serious about winning football games. That's just what it boils down to. It's been 2 years. You've seen what he's been able to produce. It hasn't even gotten marginally better. So let's move on.
Speaking of coaching changes, Nebraska went ahead and hired Matt Rule.
Matt Rule.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
We'll see.
I mean, he rebuilt Temple for whatever that is. Got 10 wins there and did the same at Baylor. I mean, I watched Dave Aranda do the same thing the year after him, so I think that was a more aberration. And then this season, you kind of saw the regression back to the mean with Baylor. So I don't know, man. Nebraska is a mystery to me.
Yeah.
It will be interesting to see what he does. He got an 8-year deal. Not that means anything. I'm indifferent. As long as it wasn't some big name, I just didn't think it was going to move the needle for me.
Yeah, Matt Rule never really changed anything for me at all. But we'll see what he does. Minnesota beat Wisconsin 23-16, which means Minnesota moved up to 8-4, which is a decent season for them.
Decent mark, but not where I think that they wanted to be.
I agree.
For Wisconsin, they are going to take Jim Leonard. They did finalize that, so he's the head coach going into next year. I think what they're going to do is actually, if they don't do pods, which I think is kind of dumb, because you could still split it up East and West, and just have UCLA and USC be on the West.
Yeah.
Be part of the Western Division.
And you can probably at least move one team over to
the East. Yeah, probably.
Which would probably be Purdue.
Purdue's the closest.
They're in Indiana.
They're the closest.
So, simple enough.
I mean, Minnesota and Michigan are kind of right there, too. I guess you could do that. But either way, I mean, you're going to have a conference that stretches from coast to coast as it is. So there's really no way to make it, really coherent logistically. You got to do the best that you can. You're going coast to coast. You're covering all of the American time zones. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be some discrepancy there. You should just make those windows as short as you possibly can.
Yeah.
California to Nebraska is a lot more feasible than California to Maryland.
Or Rutgers. New Jersey.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll definitely see how they work that out, but that'll be something to look at. Penn State beat Michigan State 35-16, which, shocker.
Hey, man.
Not really.
Thank you, Penn State, for making sure Michigan State didn't make a bowl. Since the Big Ten wasn't going to come down and tell them niggas that since you have 8 players on getting assault charges coming up, you probably are not going to go to the postseason. I'm glad that we just took care of that record-wise, and now they get to go home sad.
Yeah. Maryland beat Rutgers 37-0.
Shout out to Maryland, man. First shutout versus a Big Ten team since they joined the conference.
Yeah. Yep.
Shout out to Maryland. I would still like to see them beat someone other than Michigan State, but I guess that's Billy Edwards' job next year to see if he can do it.
Do you really think he's the quarterback that Talia was, though?
We're going to have to find out. It's got to be somebody, right? And he's the next guy up over there. So we'll see.
We'll see. Purdue beat Indiana 30-16 in their rivalry game, which then
sends
set
them
Purdue
to
up.
the Big Ten championship. Thank you, Purdue. If you could just do me a favor, don't go too hard You know what I mean? We don't want to get anybody hurt. We'll put about 40 on you, just like we did Iowa last year. Something manageable, something nothing too crazy. We ain't gonna get to 60s and 70s. We ain't gonna embarrass y'all. As long as you don't fight back too hard. Now, if you start fighting back, it's gonna be a long day for y'all. So don't do it. Let's just go out here, do some run-throughs. We'll take some pictures. We'll collect our trophy at the end of the night and go on to the playoffs. No, seriously though, they do have O'Connell. When he's on, he's on. They got Charlie Jones. When he's on, he's on.
Mm-hmm.
Maccabee, he's had a great season. I don't know necessarily if I'm confident in him getting over 100 versus our defense, but then again, you know, I didn't think that Chase Young was going to get, not that Devin Maccabee is Chase Brown, Chase Brown, yeah. I didn't think that he was going to get 100, not that Maccabee is Chase Brown.
Yeah.
But
Maccabee is a Nick Singleton kind of guy.
Sure.
Into where freshman, but they will probably develop into
something nice.
Serious threats.
Something nice, yeah.
Later
he's going to force Jeff Brom to actually run the ball. So it seems like he's gotten better and better with mixing his play call and being more balanced. And lo and behold, Marcus's Western Conference pick from the beginning of the season, right there at the end of the season. So Western Division, sorry. I'm proud of him, but then again, I would have liked to have seen him do it in a little bit more impressive fashion because they left a lot on the bone this season. Yeah. They kind of fell into this position to be able to execute at the end of the season and go to the championship game. But
it took literal chaos on the West. For them to get
they didn't need it. Honestly, like you could have beat Penn State week one. Week one, you could have beat Penn State.
Should have beat Penn State.
Who else did they lose to? Illinois, I think. Syracuse. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean, 8-4 is a good mark for Purdue, but at the same time, they probably could have been 10-2.
They lost to Iowa too.
Iowa, okay.
And Wisconsin.
You were not supposed to lose to Wisconsin at all. That was not supposed to happen.
Yep. But they did. Illinois beat Northwestern 41-3, getting some of their frustration out from the Michigan loss. So, I mean, it's Northwestern.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, good for them. Good for them. 8 wins. And a lot of 8-win teams in the meat of the Big Ten. You would have thought that, you know, as bad as they talk about the Big Ten and the depth outside of the Big Two, that we would have had all of these 6- and 7-win teams. Oh, it was a lot of 8-win teams in the meat of that schedule. A couple 10-win teams, too.
Yeah.
Just, I guess, not impressive enough when we're talking about SEC.
Sure. That is everything. LSU lost. Clemson lost.
Suck and suck.
So,
yeah, let's do away with that. No playoff for Clemson this year. We told y'all.
Yeah, thank goodness, because
and weirdly LSU there at 5. Like, I don't know what the hell that was, but I'm glad we're done with that. And you know. We'll take care of the Big Ten championship game next week and on to probably Arizona for the Fiesta Bowl.
As number 2 against number 3?
Yep.
Against TCU?
Yeah, hopefully.
We'll see.
How did your team do this week? Let us know in the comments below. What did you think about the game this week?
You can't use that word.
The game.
You can't use the. It's trademark.
Oh my God.
I'm just kidding, man.
Niggas wasted so much time this season doing bullshit.
Okay. The university did it.
We're going to dub the name the. Yeah. The Ohio State got the ass whooped.
I'm cutting that out.
Make sure you like, share, subscribe. It's all mixed in. And come back next week to greet the King in the North for his coronation after the Big Ten championship game.
Make sure you subscribe because we'll be talking about college football throughout the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
And make sure you check out other recaps where I'm much more happy because Ohio State won.
King in the North. Go Blue!